Larah woke up early, like she always did. The sun had barely risen, but the streets of Lagos were already alive with noise. People were shouting, calling out to passers-by to buy clothes, food, and everything in between. The smell of fresh bread mixed with spices, and the heat of the market was overwhelming. But Larah didn't mind. She had been selling in this market for years, and she knew how to survive. Her son, Jackson, was everything to her. Every day, as she worked, she dreamed of a better future for him. She wanted him to go to school, to become something greater than she could ever be. He was smart, driven, and full of life. She could see it in his eyes. When he was younger, he would sit beside her as she worked, and they would talk about his dreams. "Mom, I want to be a doctor," he would say with a bright smile, "so I can help people." Larah would smile, pride swelling in her chest. "And you will be, Jackson. You'll be the best doctor there ever was. Just keep studying." But deep inside, she knew the only way for Jackson to go to school was for her to work harder, longer hours. It was a struggle, but she pushed herself, day in and day out. She sold clothes to tourists, food to workers, anything she could to save money. The money was never enough, but it was enough for Jackson's dreams to keep growing. Every night, she counted the little savings she had and hoped it would be enough for his education. She promised herself that she would do anything to make sure Jackson never had to work as hard as she did. Jackson's dream was her dream. One day, after years of hard work, Jackson finally left for Abuja to study medicine. The excitement in his eyes made Larah's heart soar. This was the beginning of something special, the beginning of a new life. But little did she know, the life she had worked so hard to give him would slowly pull him away from her. Jackson stood in front of the large gate of the university in Abuja, his heart pounding with excitement. He couldn't believe it, he was finally here. The campus was beautiful, modern, and filled with students, all eager to start their new lives. Jackson felt like he belonged here. "Mom," he whispered to himself, imagining her proud face back in Lagos. "I'll make you proud. I'll be the best doctor." Larah, back in Lagos, was already calling Jackson to check on him. She wanted to hear how he was settling in. She wanted to know if he was okay. Every night, she stayed up late, listening to the sound of her phone hoping for a call from him. Jackson, however, was too busy with his new life. His friends here in Abuja were different from those he'd known in Lagos. They were wealthy, confident, and had access to everything Jackson had dreamed of: luxuries, gadgets, and freedom. It wasn't long before Jackson started enjoying the new lifestyle, making friends who had little in common with his humble roots. "Come on, Jackson," one of his new friends, Aid, said one evening, "let's go out to the club. You need to relax. You've been studying all week. Live a little." Jackson hesitated for a moment, thinking of his mother. But then he shrugged it off. "I'll call her later," he said, pocketing his phone. As the night wore on, Jackson lost track of time. He was having fun, laughing with his new friends, and dancing in the club. His mother's voice faded into the background. Back in Lagos, Larah continued to work herself to exhaustion. The heat of the market, the long hours, and the constant worry about Jackson took its toll. But she never complained. Every day, she saved a little more, hoping it would be enough to send Jackson more money, more support. But as the weeks passed, Jackson's calls became fewer and fewer. Larah's heart sank. Larah was tired, so tired. Her body ached as she worked, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. There was no one else to depend on. Her hands trembled as she arranged clothes on her stall, smiling at customers, pretending everything was fine. But it wasn't fine. The coughing had started weeks ago. At first, it was just a little tickle in her throat. But now, it felt deeper. The pain in her chest made it hard to breathe, and her body felt weak. She couldn't stop working, though. Every day, she pushed through the pain, knowing that Jackson's education depended on her. She was doing this for him. She had to. Larah's health deteriorated quickly. She started feeling dizzy and nauseous. The simplest tasks, like carrying bags of rice or picking up vegetables, became harder. She couldn't breathe without pain, but every time she felt like giving up, she thought of Jackson. He was her reason. She couldn't let him down. She called him again, her voice shaking. "Jackson. My son, please. I need your help," she whispered through the phone, hoping he would hear her. But the call went unanswered. Larah wiped away a tear, putting the phone down. She couldn't burden him anymore. He had his life to live. Weeks passed, and Larah's condition worsened. The pain in her chest grew unbearable. But still, she refused to ask for help from anyone else. Pride, stubbornness, and love kept her from telling anyone how much she was struggling. One evening, while she was resting after a long day of work, she finally summoned the courage to call Jackson again. This time, she wasn't going to let him ignore her. "Jackson, please," her voice cracked. "I need you. Please, I can't do this anymore." But the phone went silent. No answer. Her heart shattered as the call ended. She collapsed on her bed, tears streaming down her face. It hurt to breathe, but it hurt more that her son, her flesh and blood, no longer cared. He had forgotten her. Meanwhile, Jackson had become more and more immersed in his new life. The medical school wasn't easy, but he had his friends, and they made everything seem like an adventure. Late-night study sessions turned into late-night parties. Weekends were spent traveling, eating at fancy restaurants, and doing things Jackson never thought he'd be able to afford. His friends in Abuja told him stories of how life was meant to be lived without worry. "Forget your past," Aide would say, "you've made it now. You don't need to think about Lagos or the struggles anymore. It's your time to shine." And Jackson believed them. Slowly, the guilt of neglecting his mother faded. He focused more on his own desires and the world of privilege that opened up to him. He even started dating a girl from one of the wealthiest families in Abuja. They attended parties together, and life felt perfect. But something inside Jackson still nagged at him. Sometimes, he thought of Larah, of her calls, her pleas. But he quickly pushed those thoughts away. His friends were right. He had made it. What did his mother have to do with his new life? Larah's condition continued to deteriorate. Each day, it became harder for her to get out of bed. The simple act of breathing was a struggle, but she pushed herself to continue working. The market needed her. Jackson needed her. One evening, when she could barely move, Larah's friend, Grace, noticed the change. "Larah, you look terrible. What's going on?" Larah smiled weakly. "It's nothing. Just tired." Grace wasn't convinced. She took Larah to the nearby clinic, where the doctor confirmed what Larah feared. She had a serious illness, one that required immediate surgery. But the surgery was expensive, something Larah couldn't afford. "I don't have the money," Larah said, shaking her head. "But I can't ask Jackson. He's too busy with his life." Grace looked at her friend, her heart breaking. "I'll help. You've done so much for others. Let me help you." Grace's son, Daniel, stepped forward. He had always admired Larah's strength and determination. "Aunt Larah, I'll help. Don't worry about it." Larah hesitated. She didn't want to burden Daniel, but she was running out of options. "Are you sure?" "Of course," Daniel said, his voice firm. "You're like family to us. I won't let you suffer." With Daniel's help, Larah was able to afford the surgery she desperately needed. The operation was a success, but the recovery was long and painful. Throughout it all, Jackson didn't call. Not once. Larah's heart ached as she thought of him. While Larah fought for her life, Jackson was on a different path. One night, a scandal erupted around him. He had unknowingly gotten involved in a criminal case. His name was tied to a money laundering scheme that had nothing to do with him. His world came crashing down. He was arrested. His reputation was shattered. The university revoked his medical degree, and the bank seized his properties. Everything he had worked for was now lost. His friends, once loyal and supportive, abandoned him. No one came to his aid. Jackson felt utterly alone. The guilt of his past decisions weighed heavily on him. He realized that the life he had built was a lie. As the days passed, Jackson struggled to find a way out of his mess. His former friends turned their backs on him. He had no one to turn to. His medical degree was gone. His properties were sold to cover his debts. His life, once filled with excitement and privilege, was now a distant memory. Desperate, Jackson reached out to his family and old friends, but no one replied. It felt like the entire world had forgotten him. With nowhere else to go, Jackson made a decision. He would return to Lagos. He would return to the mother he had forgotten, to the woman who had sacrificed everything for him. Maybe, just maybe, she would forgive him. Jackson arrived in Lagos, feeling like a failure. He had nothing left, no degree, no friends, no reputation. He was a shell of the man he once was. But there was one thing left he could still hope for, his mother, Larah. He stood outside the small house she once called home, hesitating. He didn't know if she would even let him in. His heart pounded in his chest as he knocked on the door. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the door creaked open. Larah stood there, her face pale, her eyes cold. "Jackson," she said, her voice full of disbelief. Jackson opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. His throat was tight with regret. "I know you're not the boy I raised," Larah said, her eyes filled with sadness. "You've turned your back on me for all these years, and now you show up, expecting what? Forgiveness?" Jackson's heart broke. "Mom, please. I'm sorry. I made so many mistakes. I didn't mean to hurt you." Larah shook her head. "You didn't just hurt me, Jackson. You abandoned me when I needed you the most. I've worked day and night, all for you. But you couldn't even bother to care." Jackson fell to his knees, his face full of shame. "I was selfish, Mom. I didn't understand what you were going through. Please, I'm begging you, give me another chance." Larah turned away, her voice trembling. "It's too late for that. You had your chance." Jackson stayed outside the house for hours, hoping that Larah would change her mind. But it was clear, she had suffered too much. The pain of betrayal ran deep, and no apology could fix it. Inside the house, Larah sat in her chair, her hands trembling. Her mind raced with thoughts of Jackson. How could he come back now, after all this time? After everything? She thought back to when he was just a boy, his bright smile and eager eyes. But that boy was gone, replaced by a stranger, who only saw her as a distant memory. Jackson stayed for the night, but it was quiet, filled with tension. Larah couldn't bring herself to speak to him again. The silence between them was deafening. Over the next few days, Jackson tried to talk to Larah. He helped around the house, hoping she would soften toward him. But no matter what he did, Larah remained distant. She wouldn't look at him, wouldn't speak to him unless absolutely necessary. It was then that Jackson realized something deep inside. Larah's heart was broken, and no amount of work or apologies could heal it. He sat alone in the corner of the room, tears welling up in his eyes. Why did I do this to you, Mom? He whispered to himself. I didn't deserve you. Just as Jackson had lost all hope, something unexpected happened. Larah's friend Grace, who had helped with the surgery earlier, arrived at the house with good news. I've spoken to some people, Grace said, her voice kind. Larah, you need to get better, and there's an opportunity for you to travel abroad for treatment. I've arranged everything. It's time for you to focus on yourself. Larah looked at her friend, speechless. Traveling abroad. It seemed impossible. But deep inside, she knew Grace was right. She had been through so much, and it was time to put herself first for once. Larah glanced at Jackson, who stood silently in the corner, a broken man. Her heart ached for him, but she knew her journey had to be hers alone. She couldn't forgive him, not yet. Maybe not ever. Thank you, Grace, Larah said softly. I'll go. Jackson watched as Larah left for the airport. He stood there, unable to speak, unable to move. The one person who had loved him unconditionally, the one person who had given everything for him, was now going away. And it was his fault. As he walked through the streets of Lagos, lost in his thoughts, Jackson realized that the life he had once sought, filled with luxury and excitement, meant nothing anymore. It was all a lie. He had lost everything that mattered, his family, his integrity, and the love of his mother. In the quiet of the night, Jackson sank to his knees, feeling the weight of his actions. Jackson spent the next few weeks in Lagos, working odd jobs to survive. He tried to rebuild what he had lost, but it felt impossible. No one trusted him anymore. His name had been tarnished, and his future seemed uncertain. He went to the places where he used to hang out with his old friends, but they all turned their backs on him. Not a single person offered him a hand. But deep inside, Jackson knew he had to keep going. He had made terrible mistakes, but it wasn't too late to change. The road to redemption would be long and painful, but he had to try. The story of Larah and Jackson offers a powerful lesson about the importance of selflessness, sacrifice, and the value of family. Larah worked tirelessly, sacrificing her health and well-being for the hope of providing a better future for her son. She believed in his dreams and devoted her life to ensuring he could achieve them. However, Jackson, once a bright and ambitious child, lost his way when he was lured by a life of privilege and luxury, forgetting the sacrifices made by the one person who loved him unconditionally. Ultimately, the story highlights the painful consequences of neglecting those who care for us, and the difficulty of regaining trust once it has been broken. Jackson's realization of his mistakes came too late, leaving him with the harsh truth that material success means little when one has lost the love and respect of family. The moral teaches us that love, loyalty, and gratitude toward those who sacrifice for us are priceless, and once we take them for granted, the road to redemption can be a long, lonely journey. Hello lovers, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Thanks for staying tuned. I hope you enjoy the story. Please don't forget to like, comment, share and hit the notification button so to know when I drop the next stories.